Steel Curtain Network.
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Pittsburgh Steelers Postgame Show right here on the Steel Curtain Network. Maybe this won't be the last time we have one of these this season. We'll see. The Steelers do their job. They beat the Ravens 17-10 in ugly conditions at M&T Bank Stadium. We're going to talk about all that and more. Joining me as always, Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis. Dave, what's up?
Hey, the Steelers took care of their part of things. Honestly, that's why I had the most faith in out of everything that it's going to take for them to get in, was for them to take care of business. And they did. 17-10, it was repeat score of week 5. So for some reason, they like that score, although it got there in a very weird way when they played earlier this season. That game was on last night. I watched it just because, the safety and all that. That was fun. But, man, this one had a strange feel because you just never knew because of the weather conditions if things could turn on a dime at any moment. So really good to be able to pull that out.
Absolutely. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let me tell you, you get up every morning from the alarm clock's warning, take the 8:15 into the city. There's a whistle up above and people pushy, people shoving, and the girls who try to look pretty. And I've been taking care of business every day. Taking care of business every way. Steelers win 17-10.
I got to be honest, at the very beginning, I thought you were quoting Saved by the Bells in their
Yeah, you're right.
When I wake up in the morning, so I was like, oh my gosh, how's he going to tie this in with Saved by the Bell? Like, I love it.
I could challenge accepted.
Oh, man.
I got worried. I heard Dave say taking care of
because
business.
when you make me laugh, I start coughing. Man.
I heard Dave say taking
better.
care of business. I'm like, damn, no.
There you go. You went BTO, I went Saved by the Bell. It is what it is. Okay, let's welcome to everyone that is joining us live on YouTube, Facebook, or on Twitter. Thank you all very much. We appreciate you joining us live and participating with this wonderful group of people that we have. The regular season is over. The Steelers have finished 10-7, and it's crazy to think that a 10-win team is potentially on the bubble of not getting into the playoffs. Yet here we are, the Steelers. We know the scenarios by now. In case you don't, go to steelcurtainnetwork.com right now, and you will see those scenarios. But essentially, the easiest way in is for a Jaguars loss or a Bills loss tomorrow, Sunday, and we'll see if that happens. But let's not go there just yet. We talked a lot about that on Thursday. Let's talk about this game. The weather was atrocious. One of my Twitter followers was there with his brothers. I just couldn't imagine being at that game. It's cold, rain.
$12 is all it would have taken.
Yeah, but where we are is Steel Curtain Network headquarters in Maryland. We had snow, snow, like 6 inches of snow. My kids loved it. And then we'll turn on the TV and it's just rain in Baltimore. Only an hour away, but still, let's do knee-jerk reactions. Let's go there. Let's start there. Dave, what was your knee-jerk reaction after the game?
Okay, well, one thing I do have to say as part of a knee-jerk reaction is you say it's hard to believe that a 10-win team might not make the playoffs. How about a team that went 5-1 in the hardest division in the NFL, and yet they need help to get in? That's the thing that really gets me. If you would have told me when the season started that the Steelers would go 5-1 in the AFC North, I would think that either they ran away with things or that two of the teams ended up totally sucking this year, which isn't the case because there's a decent possibility that they all end up over 500. So it's just one of those weird anomalies. You can talk about the bad losses or everything else. The Steelers are where they are right now, and now you just sit back and see if it's meant to be or not.
Bryan, what's your knee-jerk reaction?
Let me pile on to Dave a little bit, and not only sweeping Ravens, sweeping the Cincinnati Bengals. At the beginning of the season, you wouldn't think that the team that you split with would be the Cleveland Browns. Yeah. So that's one thing to look at. My knee-jerk reaction was, this was not one of those games that I felt they had all along. And usually a lot of us come on here and say, oh, I knew it when here. The reason I didn't feel like they had it all along was because that wet field and those wet balls were causing them so much trouble trying to hold on to it. And it was ugly. Dan Moore Jr. was getting destroyed. I was scared throughout that game, and I was thinking, okay, let's get Jacksonville losing and Denver winning now. Root for those teams. I was looking for quick jerseys on Amazon for those teams. Just because it looked bad, and it wasn't the way Mason Rudolph was playing. In fact, his stat line, when we get to it, pretty nice, but it was just the fact that wet field was causing a lot of problems for the Steelers. It was causing problems for Baltimore too, but for the Steelers, for their efforts, and it seemed like things were falling apart, and seems like they were getting away from what they were trying to do.
Yeah, you guys said it well. There's not much I would add to that. It was not a pretty game. There was a lot of negatives that could come out of this game for the Steelers outside of the fact that they eventually won the game. Nonetheless, I do want to throw in a little bit of an update on TJ Watt. So TJ Watt obviously left the game with a knee injury, was ruled out immediately. And after the game, Mike Tomlin said he needs to be evaluated. That's what you're expecting. He said it sucks that he got hurt, but they need to be evaluated. ESPN's Adam Schefter took to Twitter and said that he is hearing that the early reports are that he has a sprained MCL. Take that for what it's worth. I don't even want to speculate. Like, will he play next week? An MCL sprain? Probably not. But at the same time,
grade 3, which
right,
could be the best scenario possible, but it's still an MCL sprain.
According to Schefter, he was petitioning to go back into the game, and they said no. The thing that we need to remember, and this is what I tell myself, is that regardless of next week, this is the very same situation that happened to Pat Freiermuth last year in week 18, where you saw an ugly knee injury and you're thinking, oh my gosh, did this guy just tear a ligament? Because if you tear an ACL in week 18, it could absolutely derail everything for the next season. You might not be 100% healthy when training camp rolls around. So the fact that, and this is just, again, if reports are accurate, that TJ Watt hopefully will have a full surgery-free recovery, and it won't hinder anything this offseason or anything like that. So keep that in mind. Let's get to some super chats here before we break down this game the way we always do. Razor Shade Slayer said nothing like a dub against the Flying Rat. He said a word. I'm going to say Ratbirds, but the Flying Ratbirds. Yeah. I do love beating the Ratbirds, and I love when John Harbaugh's stupid face is on the screen when he realizes that he's out of timeouts, and it kills him. It kills him, and I love it. I love every second of it. Wilson Pava gives us $10. Doubted hard during the game, but Mason showed me up. If TJ plays, we can make some noise. It comes down to him playing, the offensive line blocking. Good to be Wangs. Good to win, period. $1 per win. Hope for more. Thank you, Wilson, for the tip. We appreciate it. Yeah, we'll see. And let's go to this question. Let's get it out of the way now. Brandon Diaz gives us $1.99. He said, who starts the playoffs if we make it, Mason or Kenny Pickett? Dave, what do you think?
I think you've got to roll with Mason. I mean, what was the weird stat that I saw it had to do with quarterback rating, with QBR, that his rating for his 3 games this season is better than any rating that Kenny Pickett's had or Mitch Trubisky's had with the Steelers. And something like in Ben's last 20 some games with the Steelers, he only hit it once. But whether you like that number or not, my thing is, there's nothing that Mason Rudolph did that would say, oh, I think we have a better option to go in another direction.
Right.
But man, isn't it nice to have another quarterback right there that if things start to go, that you feel like you could say, Kenny, in the game, go do your thing. That's what I like. I want to have, if the Steelers make it in, all hands on deck for everywhere, but specifically at that position. But I just don't see how you could take it away from Mason. Today, I think there was more issues with the play calling and, of course, some holding on to the ball more than anything else. But, man, when he needed to make that throw, first play with the wind to his back in the second half, and boom, he puts it right in there and gone.
What about you, Brian? Do you think it's Kenny Pickett's ball again in the playoffs, or do you give it to Mason?
Absolutely not. I would have liked to have seen what Mason could have done on a dry field. I love what he did against Seattle last week. I love what he did in Pittsburgh. It was cold and windy against Cincinnati. I'm just saying right now that he had to. If you're questioning Mason Rudolph at all right now, that's pretty rough to do. I mean, even me, who at the beginning said, "Hey, no, if Kenny's ready, you go back to Kenny," and that not this week, but before the Seattle game. And I admit it, I was saying that. I got lambasted for it, and I own it. I have no problem because that's my gut. I'm saying we're fans first. So, with that being said, there's no way you go against him right now because he's a different guy than he was in 2019, bar none. Mason's the guy right now.
And you have to admit that he's taken the quarterback play, and he's even in this sloppy, wet field, everything else, that the quarterback play has been at a different level with him in there.
Yes,
it's not like you could potentially be having about the same thing, so you're going to go with one versus the other. Now, for the people that adore Kenny Pickett, everything, I know what their argument's going to be. Hey, Kenny Pickett only really had one game without Matt Canada, and Mason Rudolph had 3 without him. True. And you know what? And that's fine. And that can sort itself out later. I just talk about doing what's best for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now.
Here's my answer. Stick with Mason. There you go. All right. Quick and easy. All right. Alexander Pert gives us $4.99. I think that's a pound.
That's pounds, right?
Is it? I don't know. Thank you for the tip. No matter
Brian,
what.
you got the British family. You tell us.
Yeah, seriously.
That looks like a pound to me.
Know.
I know.
Okay,
I went to England.
Be decisive. Then. Say that's a pound. You said, well, that kind of looks like a pound. Like,
well, I was trying to figure out his name because I was thinking about Canada and Neil Peart, the legendary drummer of Rush.
Yeah. Anyways, Alexander says, you guys truly are the MVPs every year. Following the Steelers every season would not be the same without you guys. Love that gritty win tonight. Let me just say this. I had some people on Twitter after the game said, Jeff, if they don't make the playoffs, are you still going to do your Let's Ride every Monday, Wednesday, Friday? We're all not going anywhere. So I do have to remind myself there are sometimes that people find us and they haven't followed us for years. We are going to give you the same product. The only show that misses is the postgame show if the games aren't happening. So if you're wondering, like, are these shows just going to stop in the off season? No, they're not. They're going to keep going. So buckle up. It's going to be fun. Let's go to Jeb. Jeb Corpse gives us another £2. Said, wow, fairy tale ending to the season. A lot of people would disagree and say that they shouldn't have been in this scenario. But yeah, you win the final 3 games when pretty tough sledding. Great way to end the season. I'll put it that way. Tom Plays Games gives us $10. He said $1 per W. Tough for TJ. Hate being at the mercy of others. Been a good season no matter what happens. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. Thank you very much, Tom, for the tip. We appreciate it. Lastly, from Kyle Smith, he gives us $5. He said, this is such an ironic conversation after 3 fumbles, 150-yard game from Mason. LOL, not hating, just ironic. Big win. I feel the playoffs are destined. Thank you, Kyle, very much. And you know what? Let's talk about the stat line for Mason, because I was actually surprised. I was surprised when I looked because I didn't think that he had 18 out of 20 completions. That was really surprising for me. I expected more, but he did have a couple fumbles. He only threw for 152 yards. He was sacked 3 times. He did throw a touchdown with a rating of 115, and he was hit 3 more times for Mason. So, guys, what were your thoughts on Mason Rudolph's game? It was not as squeaky clean as it had been the previous 2 weeks. Dave, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I didn't really think about, the 3 fumbles. That was the weird scenario at the end of the first half, which that one I kind of erased from my brain because it was very similar to how the Ravens, because like I said, I watched the week 5 game last night and how they botched that field goal at the end of the first half in that game. And the Steelers, I felt like they at least had a shot with Boswell. He was kicking into the wind. I get why they went up. I know the announcers on TV are saying, oh, you should have just let the clock run down, call it timeout, kick the field goal. I get why you were trying to get a few more yards going into that wind with that weather. If the Steelers just kick the field goal on 3rd down and he misses it, everyone's going to be saying, why didn't you try to get more yards when you had some time? So it would just kind of suck. That was a bad part of the game for Mason Rudolph. It really was. But really, the big thing was that one throw that he made with the guy hanging on his shoulder. that you got to be strong, even though it was only like a 3 or 4 yard pass to Jaylen Warren. I was impressed that he got that one away. And then the nice tight window, Deontay Johnson. What was the other tight window one? Was it a Pat Freiermuth one? There was the almost interception.
There was another one too. There was another one to DJ where he threw him open in zone.
Yeah.
So DJ had softened. Yes. He's kind of sank into the zone, but because of the underneath, he had to throw it to his left. So it was a great catch, but it was also when you saw it from the rear camera that he actually threw him open. He had to throw it into that window. That might be what you're thinking about
it. So it wasn't like it was a bunch of yards, but at the same time, so were the only 2 incompletions that he had the deep ball to Deontay Johnson and the ball that was almost picked off on the first series. That was it. Because I can think of those 2 now. If he only had 2 incompletions.
Yeah. So you said the deep ball to Deontay Johnson, which Deontay Johnson just stopped running and didn't put his arms out to catch the ball. That is one of the weirdest plays I've ever seen. We'll get to that later. But yeah, I guess that's one of them was, what did you say the second one was?
It was in the first series whenever he almost got picked off because he didn't see the guy, the safety undercutting.
That was it.
That would have been it. That's the thing that I don't realize. So, but to me, the Steelers weren't asking Mason to do a lot of these conditions. That's the big difference. So was he out there tearing it up? No, but also look at the other passer for the game, 15 of 28 for 146 yards. So it's not like it was great conditions for either one of them to be out there passing. But yeah, that was a little concerning with those fumbles at the end of the first half.
Bryan, what's your take on Mason Rudolph?
It's quite possible to be hot when you're moist, but you can't be clean when you're moist. And that's the bottom line to it. The ball's wet. I'm reading the live chat. We just won the game, and people are saying, well, if it was Kenny with that stat line, you'd be complaining. You just a couple weeks ago, you called me a homer for Kenny Pickett. So look, it's not, Kenny wasn't in the game. We don't know. All I'm saying to you right now, those conditions were crappy. It was in the 30s. It was wet. We did not see Mason make those fumbles the last couple of weeks. I think you could excuse some stuff with the rain. There's a margin of error. It changes. Everything changes. You take points off the board. I picked this to be a 23-20 game. I thought a lot more points were going to be scored in this game because of the situation. Balls were popping out like crazy today. It was just a wet field, and he was not getting the help that he needed from his left tackle that much. Dan Moore was horrible in this game. And I will say, if I go back and look at the 22, I'll maybe I'm wrong, but he looked terrible. So look, maybe I'm an apologist for all quarterbacks except for Mitch right now, but he did a good job in those conditions.
I'll say this about Mason. From the first snap of the game, so the Steelers get the ball to start the game. Shotgun, botched snap. It was a handoff. You could tell the ball was wet with Najee Harris, and they're kind of fumbling around. From that moment on, everything changed. Everything went, oh my gosh, super careful, handing off the ball. Like if you saw it, like it wasn't natural. Like it wasn't Mason Rudolph turning one hand on the ball, putting it in the gut. It wasn't that. It was so careful. And then Jaylen Warren starts putting it on the turf. And now Mason Rudolph's dropping the ball in the shotgun formation. And they're fumbling the ball. This was one of those weird games. And I honestly, if I'm going to be honest, like a lot of people were wanting to say the Kenny talk, the Mason talk, if they won the football game like they did 17-10, we'd probably be saying the same thing. Wow, like it wasn't pretty and there were fumble issues and the weather was crap, but they still found a way to win. So I thought Mason Rudolph made enough plays. He made a couple beautiful throws. Yes, a lot of his yardage came on one pass to Deontay Johnson, but they didn't ask him to do a lot, like Dave mentioned. The person they asked to do a lot in this game was Najee Jerome Harris. We changed his middle name to Jerome recently. I don't know if you heard about that. But anyways, he finishes 26 of 112 yards, 4.3 yard average, did score a touchdown with a long of 15. Jalen Warren did not have a good game. We love the guy to death, but he just did not have a good game. 9 carries, 33 yards, 3.7-yard average, but 23 of those yards came on one run. The Steelers finished the day with 39 carries, 155 yards, a 4-yard average, mentioned the touchdown, and a long of 23. Gentlemen, what's your take on the running game, especially Najee Harris had a great game, I thought. Dave, go ahead.
Well, just to clarify, that Jalen Warren 23-yard run was one that I knew right away what had happened was going to be a run. A lot of people thought it was a pass because that was the one where Mason Rudolph threw it backwards to him and he busted it out early in the game. And that was the big play for him. He really struggled after that with, oh my goodness, even on the one play that he gained maybe 5 yards on the first play. It was where he fumbled on back-to-back plays. And he gained maybe 5 yards on the first one, but if he doesn't bobble the ball, he probably rips that for more than 10 yards. So he really struggled with ball security. Najee Harris, other than that very first play where he bobbled it, did he bobble it again the rest of the game that you saw?
No, he did.
So he was the one who was very sure-handed, and I just thought did the job. Now there were times where he was running into a brick wall. There wasn't really an opening, and he was just getting it up in there. The cringiest one was on the pass when he was a yard away for the first down. Even if he goes down there, even if he doesn't turn it upfield, just goes down there, that's fine. But he ran backwards and lost like another 3 yards as he was running, quote unquote, laterally, but losing a little bit of ground.
He pulled a Deontay
That was
Johnson.
probably the worst thing of him for the day.
Pulled a DJ. He pulled a DJ.
Yeah,
Deontay Johnson.
Yes. Yeah. So, but other than that, I mean, the Steelers could lean on him, and he stepped up and was ready to do it, and they trusted his ball security.
All right, Brian, what was your take on the running game?
Before I get into that, Jeff, if 4 out of 5 dentists recommend Crest, well, I'm the 2 out of 3 are going to call him Jerome as a middle name. No, it's Mazee. He cussed me out for that live back in April of 2022. I'm not falling for that. It's Mazee. I'll be that 3rd dentist or that 5th dentist in this situation. But as far as the running game goes, they did what that running game is carrying this team. There's at one point I thought, is Mason even going to go back to pass at all? It was just one of those things that Najee was in control, and it was set up very nice. If that game was in the snow, I think they would have held onto the ball better, and I actually thought they would have plowed for more yards in that game. I would have rather seen snow in that game than rain, for many reasons, even passing. Just because I'm a weather guy that way. I understand that stuff. I just know how miserable it is I was so glad I wasn't in the stands. I would have been miserable today because if I'm in the stands and it's snowing like crazy, I'm happy. I have no problem. But when it's raining, you're like, oh, this is miserable. Let's just go home. But they were controlling that game, and there was no doubt at the end of that game when they were just handing the ball off, and you have announcers saying, you got to get George Pickens here somewhere. You got to get George Pickens. No, you're not going to stop the clock. You guys have guys moving the chains and moving the chains some more. And it was working. This Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, it's not a platoon, but it's a tandem, works. And it's working well. And I want to bring up another guy in the running game that did not touch the ball whatsoever. We've complained about one guy so far on the offensive line. I'm going to laud a guy not on the offensive line, but a tight end, which I heard his name over and over and over when somebody made a nice play on offense. Connor Hayward was making a block. Connor Hayward was freeing somebody. So many things did Connor Hayward do in this game to help out. He does dirty work, and he really helped out the running game. I loved what they did in this game, rushing the football. They out Baltimore, really.
Yeah, and to me, I think when I think of the running game, it was all Najee. Congratulations also to Najee for getting over 1,000 yards. Big G put this in here. We'll have to verify. I trust Big G though. Let me see if I can find it. Where did it go? Oh man, I think not. He said Najee Harris was the first Steelers running back to have over 1,000 yards rushing in his first 3 seasons.
That is correct.
With the team.
Yes, that's correct.
Both he and Jalen went over 1,000 total scrimmage yards last week. Najee went over 1,000 rushing in this game. So kudos to him. There it is. Thank you very much.
For you.
Big G Facts, just pointing him out. Sean Gurley, thank you very much.
That's a new show, Big G Facts. and I want in the avatar when I'm pointing.
No, I want him holding up the sign that says facts.
Oh, there you go.
No, but seriously, good Najee Harris, great job. But this again, let's move into the next discussion point for the offense, and that's the offensive line. The offensive line, I thought run blocking, the tight ends did a great job. You saw Connor Hayward he was trapping a lot, coming from the right side, pulling to the left to open up holes, really creative schemes that the Steelers were deploying. But I thought that the pass protection was sketchy at best. No, they didn't give up a lot of sacks. No, they didn't give up a lot of quarterback hits. There were a lot of free runners at the quarterback. A couple times they were running that one screen in particular sticks out of my mind. They ran a screen to Jalen Warren, and Patrick Queen just came screaming up the middle untouched, and thankfully Mason Rudolph got the throw off beforehand. But, Dave, you're the O-line guy. What did you think about the offensive line?
I thought they did a nice job in the run game. I know they say Bryan already brought up about how Dan Moore really struggled. That's the thing when you're an offensive lineman. You know, it's not that Dan Moore was terrible at every single play. It's just when he wasn't good, it really wasn't good, if you know what I mean. So, but I thought across the board they did all right in the run game. I'd really have to go in and try to break each one down individually to see. So right now it's more as a whole. But he's definitely stood out in the pass blocking. Did you ask about the O-line in general or just run blocking?
O-line in general, yes.
In general. So yeah. So Morris definitely stood out in the pass blocking, but as a run block as a whole, but who really stood out the most in the run blocking, in my opinion, was Isaac Seumalo in a very, very good way. That guy, who cares if he can only practice limited one day a week or whatever it is, he's coming out and getting the job done. And on that one pull where he just, was that the touchdown even when he pancaked the defensive lineman that just got the contract for the Ravens yesterday or today. That was pretty. I really like what that guy brings, especially in the run blocking.
Bryan, what was your take on the offensive line as a whole?
You know what? As a whole, good enough. Maybe if we were grading it, I know we're not grading, better, slightly better than average, but really good enough to get things done. And bottom line is a win here. Dave's absolutely correct that, it stands out like a sore thumb when you screw up. But we talk about this all the time. When you don't hear an offensive lineman's name, that's a great thing. Now, we did hear Seumalo maybe once or twice in a positive way, but he did a lot in that game. So I'm coming up with a new t-shirt. Jeff's our t-shirt guy. I'm the idea guy sometimes. I just want I want Ogunjobi and Seumalo. No practice, no problem.
That's good. I like that. For me, the offensive line, Mason Cole just remains an issue. The snaps are not the best. I know that you're like, well, one bad snap and it's the conditions. It's been all season. Like, this is not a one-game thing. Yeah. I think that center has definitely skyrocketed up the team needs list whenever the offseason starts. He's not the guy. Steelers definitely need another tackle as well. But I thought that it's a situation where this is something that I want to dive into more in the offseason is, why does it always seem to take the entire season for this group to start to figure it out? Like, think about last year, it's the same thing. Like, they finished the season red hot, same thing this year. And I know everyone said last year is the continuity that all 5 players played alongside one another for almost the entire season. That wasn't the case this year with Chuks Okorafor getting benched. We all know when that happened. So it's just interesting. It's interesting. That's something we'll talk about. But I thought the offensive line was okay, good in run blocking, wasn't very happy with pass protection. Center remains.
But they were playing a pretty good defense too. You got to remember, was not resting nearly as many players as they were on offense.
No. I mean, Roquan Smith was the biggest defender, and Kyle Hamilton that got
But
in.
Hamilton was as much because he
Right.
was dinged up. Yeah.
Yeah, same with Marlon Humphrey. So
Yeah.
okay, let's go with the pass catchers because we haven't talked about them yet on the offensive side before we take a break and go to the defense. Deontay Johnson clearly leads the team with 4 catches on 5 targets for 89 yards, a 71-yard long for a touchdown. Pat Freiermuth 2 catches for 21 yards on 2 targets. Najee Harris 5 for 5 for 21 yards. Jalen Warren 5 for 5, 17 yards. Connor Hayward 2 for 2 for 4. Allen Robinson gets targeted once for no catches. And yes, George Pickens doesn't even get a target in this game. So, Dave, what do you think about the pass catchers?
Well, that's really interesting about George Pickens because at the key moments when they would really want to be throwing the ball, they were just saying, we're going to let you do anything else other than throw it to him. And I'm glad the Steelers didn't force it to him. But, man, the TV announcers constantly wanted to throw him the ball at the end. Lord. Was just like, you know what? I get it where you could, but does it really make sense? Now, it also didn't really make sense to run that end around with Jalen Warren that, man, based on where he and Najee were lined up, you almost knew for sure that's what was coming.
Yep.
And that's why that play didn't work. Like I said, there were some weird play calls at times in this game. But I really hope that George Pickens, responds well to that. And honestly, he was doing some stuff out there with some blocking, especially early in the game, that was really good. But overall, with the pass catchers, it just so happened that Deontay Johnson got the right pass at the right time, just to make it happen. The passing game was not really it was just a supplement to what was going on with the run game the entire time. So I don't think there was anything that the pass catchers were doing that wasn't very good. So in all, they did the best based on the game plan for these conditions.
Bryan, what were your thoughts on the pass catchers?
Well, when your quarterback's going to 18 for 20 and the 2 passes that were not complete were not drops, then I really don't have anything negative to say. I'm not looking at an all 22, and I'm fine with that. To answer Dave's question, I was thinking about that same thing late in the game, but after the Steelers scored that field goal to go up 17, not 17 points, but go up 17-7, you look on the sidelines and there's George Pickens talking to a coach, laughing and smiling. So it seems like he's okay.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the pass catchers did a good job with the opportunities they were given, which we know were limited in this weather. So, okay, real quick before we get to the break, let's do these. Just get these 2 super chats out of the way. Give me Thunder, $5 tip. Thank you very much. It says, does our quarterback situation make our offensive coordinator position more or less desirable for potential candidates this offseason? Dave, what do you think?
See, I think these are fantastic questions to talk about when the Steelers season is over. Yes. So definitely hold on to that one. Give me Thunder. It's not that it can't be answered now. It's a really good thing to talk about, and we could sit here and discuss that for a long time. I'm going to say, it really depends on what they're trying to do with the coordinator. Do they really want to have their own say in the quarterback position, or do they think, oh, it's really good to come in and work with that person? I'm going to give the Dave answer and say it's a great question.
Bryan, you ditto that answer?
No, it's absolutely a great question, but here's a simple answer. No, it doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter because there are always guys out there that want that shot. We're talking about there's people talking about Greasy. There's people talking about other guys in San Francisco. There's a guy in Detroit right now that they're raving about. I'm sorry I don't have names off the top of my head, but when there's an opportunity to become a head coach and it's the Pittsburgh Steelers organization and it's Mike Tomlin, who's more revered everywhere else than on this live chat and in the 412. So with that, no, it's not going to change anything because there's only 32 offensive coordinator positions out there, and there's maybe going to be 6 to 8 openings, maybe. And so, yeah, no, it's not going to mean much of anything, because anytime you're in a job position, anytime that you're looking for that promotion, anytime you're the second banana looking to get jumped up into that top spot, and I've had that in my career. And one time I was at a job with a rental car company, and I was the assistant manager. I wanted to be the manager. There was problems with the manager not doing the right thing. And when it was time to talk about promoting me, when they let that manager go, what did they say? Well, maybe we should go with a whole new crew because the ship's going down. And I said, well, if the ship's going down, you never gave me a chance to save it. They gave 2 months later, they promoted me, and how? And the reason being is because I was able to make my own decisions. I was able to go ahead and implement my system into it. And we were number one in the whole state. So, not that I'm bragging about my old rental car days from 20 some years ago, but everybody has their own system. They want to get in there and do it, and they know what they can do if they're just given the chance. They don't care about what's going on right now with what they have to work with. They know that they can either work with that particular individual, or they're going to do whatever they can to get their own in there.
Not sure why we're talking about it. It's going to be Faulkner Sullivan 2024.
I'm just going to say it's a good game to watch, and I don't want to just spend forever talking about that, because
that's where we're making a bet on that one.
Okay, you might lose some money. All right, Andrew Palladino gives us $10. He said 117 point X passer rating in the last 3 games, talking to Dave. 115 today against arguably the best defense in the NFL, no less. SCN was incredible this year. Thank you, guys. And I'll make this announcement on this podcast that Andrew himself, who always has this great data, these charts on Twitter, he actually sent me an article, and I said, why don't you join Steel Curtain Network? And he is part of the team. He's going to start producing written content for us. So, Andrew Palladino, welcome to the Steel Curtain Network community. You'll be able to check out his written work at steelcurtainnetwork.com. So thank you very much for the tip, though. We do appreciate everyone for doing that. So let's take a quick break. For those watching live on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, we're not going anywhere. For those on the audio side, we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. All right, Steeler fans, we are back, and it's time to talk about the defense. That's right, the defense that stymied Tyler Huntley and Nelson Aguilar and Justice Hill. I know, I'm trying. But, hey, the defense did their job. Obviously, everyone's talking about they are obviously talking about TJ Watt's injury, which is going to be on the forefront of a lot of people's minds. But let's talk about Tyler Huntley's stat line first. 15 of 28. 146 yards, 5.2 average, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. He was sacked 4 times, and TJ Watt had 2 of those. So he finished the regular season with 19 sacks. Felt like he would have gotten 20 if he didn't leave with injury, with an 80.4 rating. Let's talk about just the Steelers' defensive front and the pass rush. The Steelers had 6 quarterback hits. Marcus Golden had 2, as he had a sack as well. Mark Robinson had a sack. They eventually had 2, obviously, from Watt. And so what did y'all think about the pass rush today? Dave, we'll start with you.
It seemed like it wasn't there at the very beginning of the game, because I was like, wow, where's this pass rush? And then all of a sudden, then it gets going. TJ Watt, I thought he was going to get to 20. I really thought he was, but and how many times are the Steelers going to have guys get hit with friendly fire? That just goes to show what goes on with football, that just really anything can happen, and it's a very tough physical game. But I thought the pass rush was doing a nice job. They got more of an opportunity than I expected. 28 attempts. How many dropbacks did he have? Because of scrambles and everything. So I was satisfied with it because I thought it was really stepping up at the right time.
All right, Brian, what did your take?
I thought they went after him later on and went after him well at that point. My gosh, that sack by Robinson was a guy, because I'm on him a lot. I say a lot, saying maybe he's not ready for prime time, but I will say this: he looked like he was shot out of a cannon on that one. It was beautiful. I'm going to say this: they faced a good quarterback today. And I am not going to say that he had a bad game if I'm saying that a guy who had, stats similar as far as yardage in Mason Rudolph, I thought he had a decent game. So I really thought that they played well against one of the better backup quarterbacks in this game. He was playing in the same weather that Mason Rudolph was playing in. He was also playing without his top weapons. There's no Mark Andrews there. I know he's been out a while now. There is no OBJ. There's no Zay Flowers. There's a lot of guys that he's not able to go to. But he had two receivers that looked absolutely fantastic in Aguilar and Isaiah Likely. So what I'm saying here is, my gosh, they were able to handle him and make him look like he wasn't a threat in this game.
Here's what I'm going to say. We talk about the pass rush. I mean, the Steelers pass rush first. What does I have to do to draw a holding call is what I want to know. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
If you would have said to me, Jeff, the Steelers are going into Baltimore and they're going to be facing some backups, and it's not going to be pretty weather-wise, would you be happy if the defense held them to 10 points? I would say yes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not complaining.
And they basically conceded 3 of them.
Yeah, I'm not complaining about this. They went to the prevent defense where they're all shelled to the sideline, not letting him get out of bounds because they didn't have any timeouts. So let them throw it down the middle. That's fine. And that's why a lot of people are like, I hated how they did that. But man, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this. Like, I really am. And people want to say, oh, the Ravens had their backups. Have you looked at the Steelers starting defensive lineup up the middle recently?
Yeah.
Miles Jack.
The Steelers played
Michael Walker, Mark Robinson. Tip of the cap. I thought he had a great game there, actually. Mark Robinson did. You have Eric Rowe, which big shout out to Eric Rowe. We're going to talk to him in a second when we get to the secondary. He's playing great, but still, the dude was on a couch a couple weeks ago. Patrick Peterson's playing safety. So please spare me you're playing against backups when you look at the Steelers defense, which is predominantly backups at inside linebacker and safety. So for me, I was happy. I was very, very happy. But let's talk about the secondary because I want to talk about Eric Rowe. Can the Steelers bring this guy back next year? I mean, just as his versatility, he can play corner, he can play safety, he can play nickel, dime, whatever. Love the way the guy's playing. He left with a neck injury. We assumed it was a stinger, was able to return, had the peanut punch, forced that second fumble. Is phenomenal. Dave, what was your take on the secondary?
I thought that there was at one point of the game that I was like, oh, is this where we're going to see where this secondary is going to show their true colors, that they're trying to put a lot of pieces together, especially in the middle, that haven't been there. And that was just on the one touchdown drive. And that was basically 2 passes and 1 run when a run blitz wasn't able to come up and they busted 1 big run. Other than that, I thought they did the job well the entire game for a game that wasn't really all about passing.
Yeah, true. Bryan, thoughts on the secondary?
They didn't allow a deep ball. And a lot of times when those balls to Aguilar and Likely were being completed, it was more, if I'm not mistaken, it was against linebackers. So I thought the secondary was very good in this game. They were not able to challenge the Pittsburgh Steelers like I thought they would. That's because those guys weren't giving them any room to do so.
I thought the secondary played well. Levi Wallace, I mean, everyone's going to point to the lack of the tackle on Likely when he scored his touchdown. And Patrick Peterson's never been a really physical guy either, but I thought the secondary played well. All things considered, this was a ground and pound type game. Anyone else on the defense you wanted to talk about? Eric Rowe actually led the Steelers in tackles. I'm just looking at this now. 12 total, 10 solo with a pass defense and a forced fumble. TJ Watt was second with 8 tackles, 6 solo, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 2 quarterback hits. Just a crazy game. Anyone else stand out to you? I thought that the Marcus Golden, someone brought him up. He did a great job. I thought
Yep.
Alex Highsmith had a great game.
Yeah,
He was
I mean,
really,
he
really
did-
close.
He
Really
was getting
close.
mugged. He
Yeah.
was getting mugged constantly.
Brian, anyone you want to add on the defensive side?
Yeah, I thought Highsmith. I was looking for flags. Why Highsmith wasn't able to get to anybody because he was getting tackled like crazy. So I'm agreeing with Dave there. Now, you know what? I thought it was collectively a good effort. Maybe about a month ago, I was complaining big time about Terrell Austin and what was happening with this defense, knowing that they're depleted like crazy, but they seem to come up with a really good plan. And it's a lot easier to come up with a really good plan. It doesn't matter who's wearing the green dot, as long as the one wearing the green dot doesn't leave at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
So I think they're prepared definitely on defense. So hats off.
Yeah.
And kudos to Landon Roberts.
Landon Roberts is
for,
what I'm gonna say.
for toughing it out.
Dude's playing with
tell.
one arm and he's just
Yeah.
going all out there.
That guy's a man.
That guy, yeah,
I told
that
you
guy
when he
deserves
when he
a
said
shout-out.
when he said I'm playing, you can tell like you're gonna have to cut my arm off to keep me off this field. Like if my arm is still attached, I am going out there and playing. He was not 100%, not near 100%, but absolutely good for him.
Hey Jeff,
Yes,
if his arm was cut off, he would
might
have
still
taken
got
it
it.
with him and just swung it at people.
It's a good point. That's a very good point. I do have a super chat I want to get to here. Let's get to Felicia. Gives us $2. Did TJ get 20 sacks? No. Unfortunately, the 2 sacks got him to 19, and then he exited the game. But thank you for the $2 tip, Felicia. We appreciate it. Good to see you back in the live chat.
Hey, Felicia.
There you go. Justin Gall gives us $9.99. Says, how about all the holding by the Ravens? Let them play, I guess. Yeah, I feel like you could call holding on every play. But to their defense, that them being the officials, they didn't call holding on the Steelers. So it wasn't like it was lopsided one way or the other. And then this is a good segue to our last segment with special teams. Todd Williams gives us $4.99. Says, did our punter do anything good this year? Like flip the field or pin the offense deep? Early in the season, he was flipping the field. He was having some big punts and he was pinning people deep. This was early in this game was bad. Now there was the one time he pinned him inside the 10. The penalty made them kick it again, in which case he shanked it for like a 26-yard kick.
Difference.
Yeah, that was bad. But Dave, go ahead.
Well, and they changed direction.
You're the kicker of the group.
Yeah. Well, because the thing is, they made if you can call me that. They changed direction after that penalty. It was the end of the first. I mean, with the way the wind was working, it was like, oh man, he was struggling punting with the wind.
Yeah.
Then he had to turn around and have that be his first punt against the wind. And that's why you were looking at the Ravens' first punt. They're like, wow, that was a low line drive that then got a lot of roll because he was kicking into the wind. It wasn't going to put it up in the air and have it get blown back. But here's an interesting number. That number is 127. Now, granted, the Ravens had 7 punts to the Steelers 6. So there's one more punt in there. But that was the difference in the total punting yards. 127. The Ravens had more punting yards.
Wow.
But yet when you look at the net punting, the Steelers were better because 92. The Steelers had 92 return yards and the Ravens had 0. So the punting was not good, but the Steelers, and it seemed like the Steelers were losing that part of the game. I'm not saying, and trust me, this is not giving a pass to Presley Harvin. I'm just saying the Steelers totally got dominated in the punting aspect of the game if it was not for their good punt returning, which kind of minimized how much of the advantage Baltimore would have had otherwise.
Yeah. Brian, thoughts on big press?
Not doing what we want of them, but not killing us either.
Yeah, that's true.
And I mean, that's going to be another great. Someone was asking me on Twitter, like, new punter for next year. I'm like, I'm watching what could be the last Steelers game right now. I'm not getting into a discussion about punter for next year. I want to enjoy the last bit of Steelers that I can get. But that's going to be another big discussion for this offseason of if the Steelers, what they might do there.
Well, I'll tell you what I think. Now that you bring that up, Dave, I wouldn't be shocked if some of those kicks, which are like, hey, just kick it really high, fair catch it, are by design. And the reason why
He's doing what they're asked.
He's doing what they asked him to do. And the reason why I say that is that you've heard me and anyone that listens to my podcast, I hate how the Steelers will dial up short kickoffs at all. It's just, to me, it's just idiotic. You're giving up free yards. You can, instead of starting at the 25, they'll have Chris Boswell. And I don't want to hear that, oh, Boswell doesn't have the leg. BS. He has the leg. He's done it consistently, kicking it in the end zone. They do it by design, and it's because they want to try and pin teams deep. I wouldn't be shocked if they tell him, hey, kick it really high. We're not trying to have any return yards here. And so he does. And maybe he's just not good at getting it inside the 20 or something. I don't know. We'll see. That's a conversation.
That's really what it comes down to is, I mean, and the only reason that the gross punting and the net punting wasn't the same for the Steelers is because there was one touchback.
Yeah,
that was it. But I mean, my goodness, in the gross punting, the Ravens had more than a 12-yard advantage, but the Steelers actually had the advantage in the net punting. So you bring up a great point that maybe they just say, hey, I'd rather have 40 yards with no return than 50 yards with a 15-yard return.
Yeah. And just like in golf, there might be times where you say, I'm going to leave this just short. I'm going to kind of lay up on the par 5. No one ever says I'm going to shank it into the woods. So the shanks that he has are not by design.
Okay? Exactly. Yeah. And that's what's bad is the shanks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get this last super chat here before we go and do our final thoughts. Dennis Pavlak gives us $5. His Jack Lambert would be proud of Roberts. He's talking about a Landon. Wow, he's tough. I'm sure Jack Lambert would give him a stamp of approval for sure. So, all right, let's do some final thoughts here. Dave, go ahead.
Okay, final thoughts. Well, I will tell you one thing. I really hope that we're going to get to watch another Pittsburgh Steelers game coming up next weekend, sometime Saturday, Sunday, Monday, who knows when it would be. But if the Steelers don't get in, it's because they didn't do enough to get in. And if the Steelers do get in, it's because they did just enough to get in. And maybe it's, you can take that any way you want. Wow, that was really, really deep, wasn't it? But the whole point is, I would just like to have this season go on a little bit longer. And then you get the questions, of course, the quarterback and everything else. I'll tell you this. I don't care if it's 2, if it's 8, if it's 10. Well, I really don't want 10, but that's just personally. The name on the back of the jersey. I just want the Steelers quarterback to play the best they possibly can. That's who I'm cheering for. I'm not on team who, Kenny, T, Mason, whatever. I just want to see great quarterback play. And because the Steelers are getting the best quarterback play they've had all season, the last 3 games, arguably, if you look at the QBR numbers, then that's why you stick with it. But as much as anything, you got to love beating the Ravens. I don't care who played and who didn't play. Just going out there and making sure you get the job done. I don't want to have to talk about the offseason right now. I'm not ready for it, so cheer hard tomorrow. I mean, my goodness, we could even be pulling for a tie tonight and really end it for us sooner than anything else. But it would just be nice to have this train go just a little bit longer.
Bryan, final thoughts.
Dave, I agree with you, but there's going to be some indigestion. They're going to the NFL is going to make Steeler fans wait until Buffalo and Miami, probably around 11 o'clock at night, because, as some of you say, it's all a script anyways. So we've got to give everybody a reason to watch that game in prime time on NBC. Look, here's the thing. This is what we wanted. Whether you think they're going to win in the playoffs or get shellacked in the playoffs, doesn't matter. Making the dance is the most important thing. When I got that ticket to the 11th grade prom, my date pretty much just left me there. It was horrible. It was a bad situation, but my gosh, I did a great robot. And I got a lot of attention for doing it in a good way. And I ended up with a better girlfriend out of with that prom. So with that being said, just get me to the dance. Get Mike Tomlin, get Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett, get Najee to the dance, and let them show their moves.
Hey, my final thoughts are simple. Go Titans. Can we have a 1:00 win so that Jeff can write the article? Steelers are in, and I don't have to stay up till all hours of the night. I might push that on Dave actually, because I know he'll.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's really tough for me to stay up.
I was 2 years ago when it was just don't end in a tie.
Yeah,
and it goes down to the very end.
I was actually watching that game on my phone and being like, "Oh my gosh, this game could actually end in a tie." Like I can't believe this is happening. So okay, go Titans, go Dolphins. Let's get Steelers in the playoffs. We'll talk about all the other stuff later. Thank you all for joining us. If this is the last post-game show, Dave and Brian, thank you all very much for another great season.
Then come join us on Thursday nights for the Steelers preview.
Yeah,
with the
for sure. For everyone that's in the live chat. Yeah. Follow along. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast by searching Steelers or Steel Curtain Network. Our audio side, you'll get my Let's Ride. You'll get a special winners and losers tomorrow, Sunday morning, and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You'll get Brian's Bad Language, his Here We Go show with Coach KT Smith, Dave's Stat Geek on Thursday mornings, if he's back. Check it out. We thank you all very much. Let's hope we have one more of these, at least.
Yeah.
All right. Take it easy, guys. Have a good one.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.